Today we're going to go behind the scenes of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal to show you what goes on in our two workshops. You'll witness the birth of a homemade woodworking machine, see some of the projects we have in progress, check out some clothespins, and Mustache Mike and I will debate about OSHA and how much our fingers are worth. I don't know if you knew this, but I like building jigs and homemade woodworking machines. We try to have at least a couple new ideas in every issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, but these things don't just build themselves. I mean, it'd be cool if they did. I can make a jig that builds jigs. But until I do, I thought you may be interested to know just what goes on behind the scenes while these little woodworking wonders are being developed. Let's go have a look-see. This is my office. Don't have a look around, I didn't have time to tidy up. All you really need to be concerned with is the computer, because that's where the projects begin around here. I know old Pappy Nubs would be rolling around in his grave if he knew how internet woodworkers do things. It's if he had a grave. You wanted a burial at sea and all we had was a bathtub. It's not really something you want to hear about. My point is, I've done my share of designing with pen and paper, but I honestly don't think I could do what I do today without 3D modeling software like SketchUp. I can build a project one part at a time with amazing levels of precision. And if I screw up, which I'm not saying I've never done, but I've heard that some people can make mistakes in the workshop from time to time, well, here I can see the error and fix it before I mess everything up on the good materials. Right now, I'm working on a new design for a box joint jig. I've designed several of these suckers over the years, and I really thought my box joint jig building days were over. But it seems that that aluminum dovetail bar that was a big part of my tracking mechanism on the last jig is no longer available. Why is that a problem, you ask? Because people want to build a jig and they can't without that stinking bar. Well, they can, they just have to make their own bar out of hardwood or plastic or something. But I started playing around with it, and I don't know, something just comes over me when I sit at that desk in my little racing chair and I start working that model with my 3D mouse in one hand and my gamer's mouse in the other. I don't use it to play video games, I just like the extra buttons. When I'm in that seat, I just can't help myself. I have to start changing things and trying out new ideas. And that's the true benefit of building something digitally. I can move it around and manipulate it, see how these parts fit and those parts work together. I have the ultimate power to create something wonderful. It's an amazing feeling, sort of like God must feel, you know, if he was using SketchUp. Anyway, this jig is almost ready, but not quite yet. We'll revisit this next week. For now, let's head back to the workshop and see what else we've been working on. While we do build a lot of jigs and homemade tools, and in a couple of minutes I'll take you over to the other workshop and show you some of the projects we have going on, publishing a digital woodworking magazine means creating a variety of content. This past week we started filming a tutorial on card scrapers for the June issue. I like to screw around and have some fun on shows like this one, Behind the Sawdust. Well, believe it or not everyone gets my jokes. In fact, a lot of people don't. I don't know if that means they don't have a sense of humor or I don't. I do know my sophisticated wit isn't for everyone. So we tried to keep the tutorial videos for the e-magazine on the straight and narrow. They're well researched, completely scripted ahead of time, and we actually use a full-on teleprompter for them. If you ever noticed this little computer mouse I have in my hand, well, that's because I like to control my own teleprompter. Don't give me crap for using a teleprompter. It really helps keep the dialogue smooth. Sure beats having a bunch of ums and buts in the video. I said butts. See, there's my sophisticated sense of humor again. As far as project videos go, we build most of the jigs and tools right here in this workshop. But the regular projects, like the baseball display we've been working on for the June issue, those are filmed in the other workshop, which is where the homemade tools are kept. Let's take a trip over there and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is what we call our homemade workshop. It's a fully functioning workshop, but it's mostly filled with homemade tools and jigs. There are some commercial tools here and there, but we're making more all the time that are homemade that will replace these commercial versions, and then the whole shop will be pretty much homemade. One thing we're working on right now is a lathe tool stand. The stand is built in two parts. So if you only have a mini or medium-sized lathe like this half, you only have to build this half of the stand. If you have a bed extension like we have here, or a full-size lathe, then you can build this half of the stand. They come apart. There will also be a rack underneath that slides out for your grinding system for sharpening. You can lift it up and sit it on the bed. I think we'll have a locking mechanism for that. Over here we'll have some drawers for storage, compartments for your turning stock, and I think we're going to put a tool rack here. That'll be in a future issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. Mustache Mike has also been working on a couple of things. Let's see what's going on.
You know, I was thinking something for Chip. He's a huge sports fan, especially this time of year with baseball. And on occasion, we've all went over to Midland, Michigan, where the Great Lakes Loons are at. They're a Dowager farm team. And over the years, he's collected some foul balls. He's got a busted game bat, hat, some mitt. So I thought maybe we could make up a little rack, a display area where he could put his collection. We made it out of some nice pine and didn't really want brad nails or wood screw plug holes. So we thought, let's use the new dowel jig that we want to test out. And of course, we'll be showing that in a future edition of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal.
Well, that sounds pretty good, but let's head back to the other workshop for a cold one and a debate on how much our fingers are worth. Recently, a furniture company called Tritter Pfeiffer Home Collection LLC was fined nearly $60,000 by OSHA after an employee lost a fingertip while cutting strips of plywood. OSHA's Atlanta director called the injury horrific and preventable and said it was a stark reminder of what can happen if you ignore OSHA standards. This looks like a good subject for a debate segment we like to call Point Counterpoint.
Face it, OSHA is out of control. Not only is this business short one worker after an unfortunate accident, but they have to pay $60,000 on top of it. And where does the money go? Probably to some big keg party for a bunch of overpaid bureaucrats.
They removed the blade guards on their table saws. You can do that on your own shop where only your fingers are at risk, but when you put the fingers of your employees at risk, you pay the consequences.
Okay, but it wasn't just about blade guards. They also were fined for not having a drill press mounted to the floor. Have you ever mounted your drill press to the floor?
Nope. And I've also tipped one over. Big drill presses can be giant towers of death. If they fall on top of you, who's to say where you may end up drilling yourself a new one?
Hey, I'm all about safety, but the guy only lost a fingertip. I've suffered much worse.
No, you haven't.
What about the time I got my mustache caught in that plunge router?
My biggest question is, who decides the value of a finger? The guy lost a finger tip and it cost them 60 grand. How much of a finger is that, an inch? I have 10 long fingers. I think I could give up an inch apiece for 600 grand. I don't like trimming my nails anyway.
I wouldn't recommend it. Take it from me, it's no fun working with Stumpy Nubs.
This has been another edition of Point Counterpoint, which is totally in jest, but if you'd like to weigh in on the issue, please do so in the comments. We get to try out a lot of cool tools for Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, but these are particularly interesting. They're homemade clothespins made by a Canadian woodworker named Sandra Christopher. Why should you care about homemade clothespins, you ask? Because they represent more than just a way to air your undies, right, Mustache?
Right, Stumpy. Sandra is an excellent example of good old American Canadian can-do attitude. She was tired of crappy clothespins, so she applied her woodworking expertise to the problem and found a solution. She buys stainless steel springs from British Columbia and combines them with locally sourced hardwood for a better clothespin.
She makes them all herself in a tiny garage workshop with, check this out, a multi-router table with offset bits. So, not only is this story about a great tool, a clothespin, it's also about a creative woodworker, and that's pretty awesome. You can check out her Facebook page at The Clothespin Lady and learn more. Well, that about wraps things up for this edition of Behind the Sawdust. Tune in next week to see more of what goes on behind the scenes at the Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal shops. And please support our sponsors by visiting their websites using the links below the video. Even if it's just for a quick look to see if they have any sales or something that interests you. They pay the bills so we can make all of this content free to you. Until next time, sit back and have yourself a cold one, because you've earned it, my friend.